Okay, I think we will get started. Um, as I mentioned previously, this whole session is going to be recorded. This is our 2026 AMA. You all sent in questions from April until now, so we're going to go through them one by one. Before we do that, I think Derek and Cheyenne could kind of introduce what they've been up to this last year. I think for the most part, they're not active here on Discord, but you all follow them and see them on other platforms. So yeah, here they are. I guess first, Derek, where have you been this last year?
Okay, hello, hello. Yeah, it's Derek. I've been in Yangzhou most of the time, other than the spring tea season, where we spent a long time out in, where did we go this year? Went to Hangzhou, went to Yunnan, all through Yunnan from the south up to the north. Then we also went to, I didn't go to Dansong region this year, but I did go back out to Fujian, so the Anxi and to Zhangping Shuishan. Yeah, and then immediately coming back, I last year I bought a house in the old town of Yangzhou, turned that into a tea house called the Empty Cup. And then as soon as I came back, we were looking at a kind of a larger space to rent because our current space is like 66 square meters. And we found a really beautiful old place that had been a coffee house that we rented and turned into a larger tea house. And so in the past few months, I've been really busy with that because it has, a full kitchen, it has a coffee bar, a tea bar, alcohol, it has event spaces, and it's just taken a lot of work because we're getting people involved, like a chef and a barista and stuff like that. It's a bigger project than I can handle by myself, and so a lot of my work has been focused on that. So I've been a little uh, lazy with posting on Instagram, just because life is a little too full of other things. But it's really nice to get out here to Anhui, where I can just unplug a bit and stay in this old mud house in the middle of nowhere and just listen to the cicadas all day. And so yeah, so that's brings us up to where we are right now, currently in Anhui.
All right, Cheyenne.
我先说是吗？
Mm.
基本上今年的话，我主要工作还是就是打包，我和张一起打包。因为我们的新成员张她就是有小宝宝了，她怀孕了，所以她的身体是会有一些不舒服，所以就是说我是一直都在辅助她去做这个打包的工作。另外就是，也是。春天的时候就是运气很好，然后去那个云南那边，然后呢就，看了普洱是怎么做的，然后自己也体验了这个普洱的制作过程，就是很开心。然后呢，另外就是在沟通我们这边金鸡山的这个新的志愿者基地的一些前边的准备工作呀、沟通工作呀。然后现在看起来我们的这个过程相对还是比较顺利的，今年的收获还是蛮不错的。
From Not Enough Tea. Favorite cultivars, favorite processing, favorite release of all time, favorite tea from another vendor, differences in topics or knowledge between Chinese and Western enthusiasts. I guess like as far as a cultivar goes, like I have become a big fan of like the Fuan Dabai as like a way of making white tea. I guess like going to Zhenghe, now having been to Songxi, and it seems to me like there are a lot of places in Fujian that are using it to make white tea, but I feel like it doesn't really come to mind when people talk about white tea. So it's kind of like um, a hidden gem. I feel like, or not a very like largely discussed cultivar. In many ways, I remember Fuding they explicitly did not like Fuandaba. They would say, "Oh, it's terrible. It's always going to be sour." But like we've had these amazing milky teas from Zhenghe made from this cultivar, which I guess have expanded our understanding of white tea and what we would drink or promote from that. So that's my cultivar pick.
Yeah, I think my cultivar pick is a little more tame. I really like the Dragonwell 43. Why do I like it? Because you can find it everywhere in China. Like the more you understand like Dragon Ball 43 and like, oh, what's this tea made of? In Hubei, like most of the tea they were making was like Dragon Ball 43, right? And then we saw it in Sichuan. You'll see it all throughout Jiangsu and Zhejiang and stuff like that. And so I think it's just the most palatable green tea cultivar out there. Another one that's very close to it is the Huangjin right? That's the golden green. That's the Anji Bai Cha. And then even out here in Jinqishan, where they're making the yellow tea, you'll see that as well. And so that's that kind of low chlorophyll, very mellow, kind of green tea that almost looks yellow when it's like left out to the sun or in certain conditions, and you have to be very protective of it because it will burn under the sun. And so that's a cool cultivar as far as like human engineering and artificial selection, trying to get a cultivar that really isn't natural but tastes really great. So I think yeah, the Huangjin is really cool.
Okay. I think maybe just we just do that one question from him rather than the whole thing. How do you see that being a worker cooperative has impacted public perception and response to ORT within China and to the broader market? You've spoken before about how it's common for co-op founders to have some sort of additional compensation in the company structure, not necessarily for risk, but also for additional low-paying years that it often takes to get a successful co-op started. And that sometimes successful worker cooperatives can stagnate if member owners get comfortable in a local maximum. I'm curious what sort of pressures of these sorts or otherwise you feel within the company and how you collectively talk and work through them. I guess it's like a kind of a two-parter, right? One is like uh, how are we outwardly perceived? The other is like how do we internally uh, manage and kind of like govern ourselves? So I guess for that first question, um, I can definitely say that in China, it has been helpful insofar as like if you say you are doing a cooperative, I think it doesn't really make sense to people who are like maybe purely in like a commercial context. Like if it's someone who is government or academic or people who are tea producers, that is something they can at least understand. And I think it does um, give the same connotations it would to maybe a Westerner, where it's like, okay, that there is something beyond just you are running a company and trying to make money, right? There is some expectation of social responsibility, and I think they can understand that very readily here in China. I think outside of China, to the broader market, where our actual customers are, um, yeah, I think it's pretty, and guys can jump in on this. I think it's pretty universally known that's how we are structured, and that there is some social mission along with the tea that we are sourcing, introducing, and promoting. And I think that um, people treat you nicer, like a customer service situation, if they don't think you're trying to screw them, right? If you're dealing with someone who you think is like sleazy or you think has wronged you, or if there's like, mm, if you think that that person as an economic actor is inherently trying to like optimize and maximize and get the most out of every interaction, you probably are going to want your money back as quickly as possible, and you're probably going to complain, or you're going to pay it back, right? I think if you know this is a social enterprise and that there are a different set of attitudes and norms in treating the producers, I think the customer, when they buy from you, are going to treat you well likewise.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because we've just been trying to make this work for the past 8, 10 years, right? And so for us now, it's sure we can be seen as a worker cooperative in the public eye and in the domestic eye, but a lot of it is us figuring it out ourselves, right? And so we've always had this ideal of being a worker cooperative, but only recently does it truly feel like it's taken the right shape. Because before, like when it was just the three of us, we didn't even have, another worker owner, right? And so
Sure.
now Jong has joined, and now that challenges us in like, okay, how does this actually work? And this will get into the second part of the question where you're asking, what are we going to do when we get more members? What are we going to do to, you know, compensate the founders who have been here since for the first 8 lean years, right? And so we've been talking about it, but again, we really just don't know until we cross that bridge because there is no perfect book we can read and just say, oh, we'll do exactly like this, because every cooperative is different in its means to survival and its means to sustainability. And so we have to find out what works for us in the right way. I think Alex has talked about, every year you get a certain amount of labor points, and these can kind of stack up, and then something like that, where it's like somebody else will come in, the worker owners do less, and then the playing field kind of levels as far as the payment scheme goes. However, in addition to that payment scheme, we have imposed the salary caps on ourselves. And then that payment scheme would only come out within equity draws. And then putting other rules on, okay, how do you share the dividends? What do you use the dividends for? Is it just pure payout or is it reinvestment of some kind, education, development, etc.? And so that second part of the question is pretty intense, and honestly, we just can't completely answer it right now because we have to figure out what works for us.
Next question from Reese. Will the solidarity releases, i.e. Baikang Caicha, continue into the future? Yes, I think so, yeah.
How many Baisang Saichas do we have left?
We currently have 7. How many? Yeah, Cheyenne says indeed we have 7. We have 7 left, so
And so our idea here is like wait until one solidarity trust or one solidarity product sells out, and then immediately that way it's very easy to share the profits because we know exactly how much we paid, exactly how many we sold, and we can share the profits, and that's like a one-stop thing, right? Where if we share the profit midway through and then we sell a few more next month and we have to share a little more profit that month, it becomes very cumbersome, I think, for everyone involved. And so our idea here is to first completely sell out of a Solidarity Trust product and then invest in another one. So I think our plan here for this year was to do one every quarter. And so you can probably expect 2 more Solidarity Trust projects or 2 more profit sharing products before the end of the year.
I think also like because so far we've done only press teas as a part of that, we have to buy a certain quantity, right, for it to work. So that means we have to wait until that quantity is sold out, and that may take longer, I guess, than if it was loose. This question for Derek. What do you plan to do with that house you've rented? What tea, etc.?
You talking about this house? The Jinshishan?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't
Oh,
know.
I would assume it's about this house.
Okay.
And so yeah, we're all here right now in Jinshishan, outside of Huoshan, outside of Luan, in Anhui. Do you ever have trouble explaining where we are to people in China? Because people don't know Jinshishan,
No, yeah.
and a lot of times they don't know Huoshan.
Luan.
But I feel like we're not in Luan, right? We're like 2 hours away from it. But
Yeah.
anyways, this is like the cradle of yellow tea in this region. The Jinjishan, the Golden Chicken Mountain. We released that cake last year, the Golden Cock, and that was a reference to this mountain here and the iconic yellow tea they're making here. So we're partnering up with one of the sub teams. So not the entire village, but 1/6 of the village. It's still like 35 households. And we're particularly with one maker, we're practicing how to select a cultivar that will be the cultivar for this region because they're doing a lot of heirloom bushes and stuff like that. And here, the tea we're focusing on is yellow tea. And so right now behind us, we have a little batch of Huang Da Cha, tea that we picked ourselves, processed ourselves, and Alex has it here in this really damp and humid house fermenting. And I'll check on it every day for the next 15 days.
So, as you may gather, it's going to be yellow tea. And I think something yesterday, which one of the friends of a local producer here in the sub team told to us was, if you really want to make good Guangdacha big yellow tea in the summer, you should pick as little in spring as possible. So if that's the case, then maybe for that first pick, like the first buds, we can do some modicum of like white tea. I feel like kind of like yeah. So like one small little run of that, and then leave it alone for the rest of April into May, and then we just do that Huangdacha in the summer. So I think that will probably be what we do here for the next couple of years. I mean, maybe as time goes on, maybe let's say we do that next year and we think, that was fun, but now we want to do red tea or oolong tea or whatever. I think it's not necessarily a closed done deal. There may be more teas we explore, but I think definitely Huangdacha is the main point of interest for these next few years here with this house. If you could choose to change one thing about the tea industry or work culture in China, what would that be? Okay, the Chinese tea industry or the Chinese work culture? China? Hey, yeah. 从中国人的角度，I'm gonna ask Cheyenne. 如果你能改变中国茶叶产业或者你们工作企业文化的一点是什么？你会改变什么？
茶农的收入能高一些，然后就是我希望茶农的收入可以更高一些，然后呢，就是说我们 ORT 可以带动，就是说我希望我们会成为一个模范性的一个团队，然后呢，可以让更多的人去参与到这个模式，然后呢，让中国的这个茶文化相关的这些人都可以是一个比较是双赢的一个局面吧。
I think for me, what I would like to change about the tea industry, if I could, is just the more acceptance of organic farming and lack of pesticides and lack of fertilizers. Because if you go to Taiwan, you'll see all the farmers understand this. Like you go to farms and they're doing organic, they're doing natural farming. Not all of them, but a large percentage of them. You see this in the West, right? If you're doing like a natural product, organic is very high on the list of like what you might consider. Here, they really just don't consider organic unless they're Alex, who would do organic tea here in China? In my mind, it's usually the bigger farms.
Yep. Yeah, I would think like a larger factory which is trying to do like export to Europe maybe would do organic.
But with that, you're thinking of like, hundreds, if not thousands of acres of tea, and they're all like making it very homogenized and making it organic. And so for us as a cooperative, this is not really the tea that excites us. We're excited about more of the smaller niche teas, and these are very, very seldom organic.
At least not de jure organic, right? Like they may well satisfy the pesticide residue, maximums or whatever, but like these are not the people who are going to pay for the 3-year certification process. But yeah, my general impression of it. So there's a lot of discussion about fertilization. I mean, just last night we heard some hot takes. There was a guy here, a Yale tea producer, who thinks absolutely zero fertilization. He does zero fertilization of any kind, which I think is the most extreme position. The idea being that whatever flavor compounds or sugars that are maybe more carbon based in the tea plant, if you add any nitrogen rich fertilizer, be it, let's say more organic or less organic compliant, you're going to end up in a situation where I guess like the carbon to nitrogen balance is changed, and then the tea will be less flavorful. The word he was using was like, it's just the natural flavor, that expresses itself in tea that we like is ruined if you go after yield and apply any sort of nitrogen rich fertilizer. This is his, I'd say, extreme position. There are more moderate positions that say, well, maybe you're looking for something like canola, like the original variant of canola, which is rapeseed flour, which here is used to make edible oils. The leftover byproduct of that often can be turned into a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, but also has other nutrients in there, right? So like there are people who would say, well, maybe we should go back to using the byproduct of this rapeseed flour pressings. There are people who say maybe we should go back to using, like the household waste, be it ash, be it stuff from the privy, so to speak, as well as, the things that traditionally you would see in a tea farmer situation. So that's like animal waste, human waste, ash, fallen leaves, bamboo. So there are different, I think, philosophies out there you can find. Like the guy in Fujian you met, the Tieguanyin producer. Did he say what he was doing down there?
Yeah, he said he was kind of natural farming and stuff. He was also playing music for all of the plants. And so in every little piece of the garden, there'd be a loop of a song. It could be like a little piece of a sutra, of a Buddhist sutra and chanting and stuff like that. In other places, he's playing like, more like upbeat drum, lively music. And he's like, my goal is to make the plants happy. Like they want the vibrations, they want the music, and this helps them grow into happy little tea bushes.
So truly a variety of perspectives and approaches out there. And yeah, but like I think there is something to it. I think I posted in this Discord before. Someone, um, I think has demonstrated at least in Fujian, um, for these high output, high aroma bushes that they're using like Jingguanyin to make like oolong and red tea now. When you use tons and tons of fertilizer to get 8, 9, 10 months out of the year pickable, it does do something to the flavor profile. I think there is something there. But like we're talking about insane quantities, right? For insane yields and an insanely long duration of picking. So I think in some contexts, you know, maybe you do need to have the vibrations, right? Maybe you do want to be using more organic fertilizers. There is something lost if you do the most conventional, shall we say, sort of agriculture.
Okay, yeah. The next question. What are your white whale teas to source? That teas that keep coming, that tea that keeps you searching, which may or may not exist, may or may not be findable. Yeah, so a white whale to search. I think this implies that the tea does exist, right? It's out there somewhere. We're looking for it. Uh, one of them would be for me, like pu'er is always just that's where you can find the golden eggs. That's where you can find any potential tea that is out there. I think I would love to find some nice naturally aged tea from a region I like that, a farmer's just been sitting on for a while. And so for me, that's like kind of the aged malcha would be a really excellent thing to find. Another one would be, I think we'll get into this in another question later, is Chinese matcha. We've been coming across so much Chinese matcha since I think it was back in like 2019. Guizhou, the farm in Guizhou started sending us samples of matcha that they were making here in China, and it was trash. It was terrible. Like we could not drink it. We could not stomach it. And every so often they would send us more samples. We try it, and still very inferior to Japanese matcha. However, with like the matcha scarcity thing that's happening in Japan right now, China has doubled down on its matcha production, got a lot more serious about it, and I think they're finally starting to make higher quality matcha teas that could hold a candle to the Japanese standard. And so for us, I think in the next chapter, that would be a really excellent tea to find is a matcha made in China that we're satisfied with.
Um, Cheyenne, I think I know there's some red tea you've been looking for. You要找什么样的红茶呢？
我想找那种比较高火的那种红茶。对，因为我很好奇，就是我们国内就是以前的那种红茶的样子，就是说我比较喜欢去溯源，我们就是说是什么样的原因让我们从以前的那种高火的红茶，然后发展到现在的这种花果香的红茶。虽然现在的花果香红茶也很好，但是吧，对我们来讲，它确实是有点嗯，很单调，然后也比较的流行，所以我对一些传统的功夫红茶会比较感兴趣。然后呢，认识到了他们最开始的样子，然后呢，慢慢的去了解它的这个发展过程，我觉得这个比较有意思。
Next question. Do you prefer white teas loose or compressed, and why?
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty obvious to prefer silver needle loose. Baimudan, I do prefer that loose just because the leaves are so beautiful. Sometimes it's a pity to press really beautiful Baimudan. We do it though, press in the Grandmother Mountain, and even in like the Mithril. I think the Mithril from Yunnan, that's a beautiful tea loose leaf, but it just doesn't make any sense to sell it loose because it's also very, very fragile and very, very large of leaf and stem and bud. And so if we put it in a bag and ship it across the world, it's going to break, it's going to fracture. The cost of the shipping is going to be significantly higher. If we press it into a cake, that preserves it not only for the shipment, but then also gives it the potential to age as well. And so for me, a lot of the aged teas like the Shomei and the Gongmei, that I really like pressed. I've had some loose Shomei from 2011, and it's crumples into paper as you're touching it. Like it's really not sustainable to age that tea loose for that long. And so by pressing it, you do preserve a lot of the leaves actually.
I guess, yeah, most of the white tea I drink is loose. I do mostly drink Silver Needle. Um, the only exception is I will drink some of the bundled um, milk aroma like Junghe tea, and that is, I guess, in a way pressed. Um, but yeah, I don't really drink caked white tea um, in general. But uh, I think I definitely would not say it's worse in quality or profile. It's just that I have so much, I have so much tea at this point that like I do have cakes and they are in my cabinet, but like I just do not get to them so much as opposed to like smaller samples. Are there any gaps in the offerings or teas you'd like to source that you haven't been able to, or where sources are just not meeting your requirements?
Yeah, this one really hits me because I remember a few years ago, I went to Japan for like just traveling for fun, and I was like, it'd be really cool to source some Japanese green teas. And so I got a lot of samples. I went to like what's it, Uji out in Kyoto, where they're making a lot of like the girokuro and the matcha and stuff. And I got really into the tea, really excited. I was talking to like an exporter there. I was like, hey, I want to buy some tea in quantity and export it to my country. And they're like, sure, no problem. We can ship anywhere in the world. Right. And then as soon as I told them I needed it shipped to China, they were like, oh, that's very difficult. And they were like, I don't think I can help you do that. And so I've always wondered why Chinese-based vendors don't sell tea from Japan, don't sell tea from Korea, don't sell tea from Taiwan. It's because of that import complication. And so those are huge gaps in our lineup. I would love to start sourcing really nice high mountain Taiwanese organic oolong, right? But I essentially at the moment we can't. Or Japanese matcha and the really nice, truly steamed green teas. But it's just more feasible to be, a Western-based vendor sourcing and selling these teas rather than a Chinese-based vendor sourcing and selling them.
So I guess like I have always been interested in these like smoked teas or like smoky teas, and I've bought probably like 6 or 7 samples of this tea Weishan from Weishan in Hunan, which and the whole thing is it's a yellow tea, but it's smoked. And unfortunately, every sample that I have received, it just tastes like you're like sucking like the smoke out of a barbecue or something. Like you don't taste the tea. It's like pure smoke, right? And the only green teas in the past where it seemed like it was like kind of accidentally smoked or more smoky. Past years, yeah, Mapua, Xiang Maojian, Chun. Everyone's like, oh my God, this is terrible. I hate this. So like, I would like to find a way that a smoky tea would taste good, not just to me, but also for everyone. So this is an ongoing quest, which may or may not be resolved. Yeah, sure. Which teas do you think would sell really well, but ended up not? Similarly, which teas do you personally really like, but just aren't popular in the West or hard to sell in ORT?
Cool. Yeah. So Alex just said it's that smoky green tea that he really likes that I think sold really well once in like the Mapocha. But then when we really doubled down and bought big on it, it did not sell very well. And so this is a hard question for us because essentially it's kind of like our failures of like what we doubled down on and that just did not perform. For me, it's the Maocha samplers from Pu'er. And so the first one I did was the Huaju Liangzi Gushu from this year and 2 years back. And I was like, man, this is so great. It's not a lot of quantity, so I can buy like the highest quality tea possible, like really nice gushu stuff, and then offer it in a box, and people can blend them and kind of get the experience. And that did not sell. Like we we had that for so long, and I think we just eventually took it down without selling it. And I drank the Maocha myself. And then also the other one that was the Huaji Liang, so we did another one with the Lao Man, that super bitter tea. And, I wanted to sell the gushu, but I couldn't buy enough to press into a cake. So I sold it to Samaucha and it just didn't perform. And so, yeah, I thought there was a big desire for people to drink high quality big leaf Maocha pu'er tea, but so far it's just not performing.
I wouldn't say like I think the things which are not popular in the West but are popular here are things that we probably would not want to sell in ORT, so to speak, right? I don't think we're gonna be selling those like I think every if I close my eyes and think, okay, what's available in like a tea shop in like Taiwan or like Beijing that we are not selling? It's like kind of like novelty items, right? Maybe are not the best tea. I think that's not really the problem. I think the problem more so would be, as Derek says, things which are really more high quality or more niche that, people at least would express, hey, it's a shame that, I only can buy a giant expensive cake or tong or something. I really just want a taste of the matcha. People in past years have requested matcha. Like we've received that in personal messages and in the surveys. Um, so yeah, trying to think of in past years we had the Sichuan sampler, which at times has been one of our best selling products. I feel like the Anhui sampler has sold less, is less exciting. Um, sorry, the Huangshan sampler from last October has demonstrably sold less than the Sichuan sampler from the year before. So there might be a diminishing return in these kind of like, you know, more geographic based samplers. But also I think that Sichuan tea maybe is just less on people's radar. So it's kind of exciting. Sichuan also is a word we know in English, right? China, okay, Sichuan, spicy, pandas, yes, exotic. What's Anhui? What's Huangshan to even to a certain extent? Maybe we know that Yellow Mountain is there. And for people who do know about it, they've already had the teas. People who don't know about it, maybe it's just less intrinsically interesting. Would you ever do a monthly or quarterly tea club? Yes, we will start a tea club next month. You've heard it first. Yeah, so we will start a tea club in August. God hears this now. The rest we'll hear tonight when I post this on YouTube. But yes, I think going forward, a monthly tea club is the way to go. It's something which has been requested for a long time, but uh, it just seemed like, well, the four of us were already so busy. But now that I'm no longer doing classes in Beijing full time, now that Zhang will be coming to take over most of the shipping, I think that going forward, it's going to be completely viable for us to do this monthly tea club, and it can rotate. So it can be me in August, and then September someone else, and then all three, eventually four of us can kind of rotate the tea.
Yeah, the tea club has been requested so much in the past few years. I think it's like one of the most common requests we get is if we will do a tea club, and we've kind of fought against it for a long time, just because it seems like a lot of people are doing tea clubs, and like we want to release our samplers and release these like very guided kind of educational tea boxes perennially. Like we want to have it available on the website for everyone and not just for like this small group of people that signed up for the tea club. And then it's like, oh, then do we put that tea on the website after the tea club? Then what's the point of the tea club? And so I think after being in China this long, after knowing so many farmers, after swimming in tea in our warehouse, we just have way too much connections, way too many teas, and I think we can easily make tea clubs for the rest of the 3, 4, 5 years without really thinking too hard because there are so many teas that we like, that we find interesting, that just don't make it onto the website for whatever reason. And so this could be a really cool view into kind of our side of the job of just the the amount of different styles of teas we come across in our daily lives here in China that we can share with other people. But we would like to ask more about what do you want out of the tea club? What are you looking for? Because sure, we can make a tea club with our own ideas, but as a cooperative, as a collective enterprise, it'd be so much cooler to have this discussion open to the public and stuff. And so if you have any guidance for us, let us know what you would like to see in it. This could include price, this could include content, this could also include how often the tea club is, if it's monthly or quarterly. So yeah, so we will do a tea club starting next month. But yeah, you let us know if you want it to take any particular shape.
5 years ago, I mean, there's a channel on this Discord never used called Patreon Voice Channel. Once upon a time, we did have, I think this is very early on in ORT. So it would have been the first year of COVID, I think it was. We made this Discord server, and initially this Discord was mostly focused on those 5, 6 people who signed up for the tea club. It was a lot of work, uh, and it seemed like at that time, unlike now, we really had to look for teas. Like, oh, there's a dark tea one coming up. Okay, I need to go buy for the first time in my life this zangcha from Yan. Buy for the first time in my life this dark tea from Shanxi. Like these are things I had never encountered before, so I didn't really have a lot to say. Uh, Whereas now, I think, as Derek said, we have reached this point where we have such a massive quantity of tea. We've been to all of these places, and yeah, we can really do something with it. But the question is, how do we make it unique and authentically ORT to you guys? We will need your input towards that because like there are already so many other tea clubs out there. If someone else is going to be putting down another 20, 30, $40 a month for ours, the question is, what's unique about it? So, yep. Bob, did you ever have any producers that you had a hard time convincing to sell you tea? No, it's the first part. This question, and we'll answer these separately. Second part being, did you ever look for some hyped region or specific subtype of tea, but either weren't able to find a good example or were underwhelmed what you found? Yeah, this first question I think is unique.
Yeah, this first question is funny because Alex said last night he's like, I don't think anyone's had a hard time selling us tea, shipping us tea. Yes, we've had a lot of farmers like shout out Wenzitong, who's just impossible to ship us tea on time. Like Wenzitong, he'll say he's shipping us tea in August, and it will be the end of September or October. Every day reminding him, every week calling him, and he'll finally ship us the tea. But he'll take our money. He'll take our money and he'll make the tea and, and stuff like that. And then he'll ask for more money before we receive the tea. He'll try and sell us even more tea before we get it. But yeah, so selling tea, usually if money's involved, it's not a big problem. The only time I've kind of felt resistance was from Cho, just because Cho is a huge kind of factory producer, curator, collector of white teas. And he's used to selling it, by 50 kg increments, 100 kg increments. And here I am just wanting to buy 500 grams of something. And so for him, he was very nice to sell me his tea at the beginning, I think. Right now, we're at that point where it's like we're actually making it worth his while. But at the very beginning, he was definitely doing us a favor selling us tea.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else where occasionally, like I think there can be difficulties in communication. The guy Tan in Baotong, just like we'll send him. We have a group chat, right? As any responsible company would, we have a group chat with them. Everything can be put in text, right? So we make sure. So if you forget something, you can go find it, right? And I feel like he never looks at that, and then we'll just like give you a video call, and sometimes you miss the video call. Sometimes you don't fully understand what's said in the video call, and that's just how he wants business to be handled. And occasionally it is difficult. So I guess like not an unwillingness on their end, but like a difficulty in the buying process I did not anticipate at this point. Okay. Um, but I guess it's kind of a maybe I think the geographic question could be unique. Was there some hyped region, like a place we had gone, but that there was no good tea there?
Huoshan, like where we are right now.
Mm,
Right, like we came here. When was that?
2022.
2022. So yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah, so we first came here 4 years ago looking for yellow tea, and there was just no yellow tea around. It was all green tea. And so we had to look around many, many times, talk to a lot of different people, get like the ex-mayor to help us out, pull some strings, reach out to some contacts and stuff like that, just to find the true yellow tea. And it's funny because 4 years later, here we are with a rented house in the core region. And last night we were just hanging out making some of this Huang Daya with some really incredible like makers of it who are kind of hard to find, I guess. And so I don't think it's necessarily hidden. It's just not domestically popular at the moment.
Hmm. I think also like the opposite problem has happened where I remember going to Yongchuan in Chongqing, which Chongqing bills like this is our tea area. This is the big place for tea, and you know the numbers in how much tea they sell are impressive. And we went out there, and you know we wanted to find like who are the real inheritors of it, right? What's the real traditional shoya in this area? And it's just Maojian. It's just like the same like Maojian you can find in all kinds of places, right? And you're stuck in a situation where yes, it has the brand. Yes, it has a large consumer base, right? If you walk through the streets of Chongqing, past any tea shop, you will see shoya. It's everywhere. But like the shoya, the real thing in this real area, it's kind of underwhelming. Either it's a completely new processing style inspired by Shanxi, or it is this traditional style, which is basically it looks and tastes like the same Maojian you can find all across China. So I guess, yeah, Chongqing in general has been kind of a letdown in terms of tea.
Well, what about Liubao, right? Because we
Hmm.
wanted to go to Liubao and find some of that nice aged Liubao, but where's all the aged Liubao?
Malaysia, perhaps, dear listener, your basement. I don't know. It's not there, right? The only, I mean, there was only like factory produced, like factory style Liubao, which you could buy with all the proper certifications, and that might be 10, 20 years old, right? Um, or you can buy freshly made, kind of gnarly stuff. Or you could buy very gnarly stuff, which has been sitting in someone's attic, exposed to the exposed to the weather and all the climatic heat and moisture of that area for that long, right? And it's full of moths and it's full of dust and other questionable grime, right? Right. Yeah.
Shout out.
So it's just like that. Having now been there, having been to the tea market in Wuzhou, having been to Libao Township, having been up into the villages, yeah, I would definitely say that most of what is Libao tea either is very boring, normie factory produced stuff, which is clean and okay, or very, very nasty, undrinkable farmer produced stuff. And I think there's still more explorations to be had in Liuba. That was only our first foray into it. We found teas which I've seen in all the feedback are interesting and polarizing, and people are still buying them. But I think I would not say I have found a Liu tea I want to drink every day. Yeah. Y'all have been doing this for almost 10 years. What is something that has changed in terms of your expectations of ORT now compared to first starting the company? Are there some things that y'all still wish to accomplish that ORT has yet to achieve? What is something we are still yet to? Well, I mean, I would say that it would be ideal if there is a Chinese side producer, a cooperative or a village collective who we are working with, and I think is trying to do the same thing. I think historically, this last year in Ensha, in Wildbrook, or earlier in Hafeng, um, we were in a situation where the organizations we were paired with um, maybe did not have all the same goals that we did, and it didn't seem like we really ever got onto the same page 100%. But I think that's something that will change here, hopefully. I mean, like the real initial dream I think 10 years ago was okay. They would be farmers who'd be part of ORT, right? I think that's the initially I thought we're gonna figure out this um, international market, and then we'll just bring in tea farmers, and then they will join the cooperative, and it will be this kind of cross-national, completely vertically integrated enterprise. And now I guess Zhang, who does pick tea and does come from a tea farming household, has joined. But really, we have not yet reached a point organizationally where I think we have fully incorporated, yeah, any tea maker or tea farmer. And maybe it's something that will change in the future.
Yeah, one thing that has definitely changed for me and what I can see with what one of our tea is doing is the idea has not really changed, but the efficacy has. And so when we first started, we're like, okay, how can we help these, marginalized tea makers gain access to the global economy and sell their tea directly to, internationally? And that was always like, okay, we want to do it. And the tea farmer's like, how much tea do you want? And we're like, okay, give us 1 kilogram. And for them, that's like the smallest percentage of their annual yield that it's laughable, right? And so now if we can get into like, 20, 30, 40 kilogram range, like that's actually something meaningful for them, especially if we can double or triple, what they would get off of the domestic market by partnering with us and gaining access to the international market. I remember like the first time we did it with the Laotian boys. I went down to Lao in like 2019 up to Fong Sali. That was a fun trip. I took like a 15-hour one of those crazy bus rides through the night, and the bus driver's like blasting Laotian pop music to stay awake. And it's like arrive in this village at 4 a.m. in pitch blackness, and then get a motorcycle out to the village of Bangkomen and see these really nice gushu tea trees and these like farmers that have just been bullied by Chinese farmers coming in and buying their teas for really cheap, saying there's no domestic market, and essentially like kind of strong arming them into selling them their high quality teas for just a pittance. And so that was like the first time that I was like, okay, like this is something we can actually have an impact in. And so it was like right before COVID, during COVID, and I remember we bought some stuff and then tried to send them extra money, and they were like super confused by the profit sharing idea, right? Because we don't speak Laotian and they speak Chinese and we speak Chinese, but it's a second language as well. And so trying to explain the model to them was very difficult. But that was kind of like the first beginning of it. And then here, you know, 6 years later, we were able to sit down with the village head, with like the sub team head and stuff like that, and work out a solid contract that we can sign, agree on terms, and really get like actual concrete value into this village.
Yep, I think that it's happening. Uh, we're only 10 years into this organization. I think 10, 20, 30 years down the line further, it will truly reach its final form, right? So I think as we continue to grow, as we continue to evolve, I think as long as the initial goals and ideas remain to be stated, and then we have all the customers and now producers to keep us honest, we'll keep moving in that direction. Okay. Would you ever consider doing an artist residency at either the farm or the tea house? Many years ago, someone in Wuhan approached us and it was like, hey, we want to have a residency program at your tea house in Hawthorne. This is circa like 2021. Um, but then they never came. And yes, it was COVID, so like that may have been a factor. But I'm definitely open to the idea. I think it could even be cool, especially in those like colder months of the year. But I don't know a lot about residency programs. I would like to, I guess, learn more before committing to the idea.
Yeah, I mean we have the space rented for the next 5 years. We'll be here. We're living in here now, and so it's definitely a livable space. We can provide, an allowance for food and free room, stuff like that. But yeah, I think as Alex said, there's a lot of stuff going on in spring, some stuff in like early summer, and then you get into months where there's just like no tea happening out here. And so when we have like woofers wanting to come and like work on the farm, we kind of have to funnel them to certain dates. And so there's a whole other part of the year where something like an artist residency would absolutely be perfect.